Okay, I want to welcome you in, friends. I'm Dr. Brunswick here. Stephen, my friends call me. It's a part of our broadcast. We normally are starting out with all of the current events and so forth. One of these I know everybody has seen has been the, as you know, the SVB bank collapse with a fresh reminder of the failing policies of the liberal left. We see the SVB bank collapse and other reminders, not only to fall back on true money, the fraud-proof gold and silver as listed in the U.S. Constitution. Today, we see the programs inserted to control your life as insurance for the banks, which include such as climate change or rearranging the earth when there fails. They call it successfully distributing the wealth to the poor. Their climate change scientists are proven wrong, debunked all the time. And the banks now claim they're just a Robin Hood, just giving everything away to those in need. Yes. So if you believe that, we're told that if you don't say we're the greatest government in the history of the world, then they're going to come get you worse than Stalin went after those who didn't clap at the end of his speeches. So I hope you are careful about all of this. The communists said that also when they distributed the wealth, and they said no one was allowed to buy anything. You couldn't buy anything without a special coupon or a credit. You had to go in long lines just to get furniture or get toys for your kids. Anything that was a little bit out of the, just above the very basics, you could only get a certain amount of grams of ham and these kind of, different restrictions. This is what they're wanting to do again with this new credit system, this new central currency. They're talking about a digital currency. And I know that Governor Kristi Noem caught it, the South Dakota governor, who highlighted that bill came to her and she just vetoed it. This was a great tyrannical attempt to take over in her state from the central bank. Okay, wow. So we've put online several books on this central bank credit fraud. You can check them out from our main page. Okay, this topic needs to be covered. People need to understand how the theft works. God didn't intend for anyone to be sucked out of their hard-earned wealth and inheritance and their property. Okay, but the life, liberty, the property, all of that, the inheritance to the posterity, this is all part of what God intends us to have. It's, the Constitution and many points were lifted straight out of the Bible. And yeah, we just can't allow this AI robot, digital currency system and credit system, to get too much foothold. Okay, so do stay alert. Let us know. We'll send out our alerts. I do have a larger mailing list, so we'll get that out. So do enjoy those books. On the financial credit fraud, you can get them on orthodoxchurch.nl or on standrewsocc.org for your educating and reading pleasure. So, well, today is St. Patrick's Day, as many know, and we definitely have to cover him and remember him and his example to emulate. Okay, he was well known not only for driving out the snakes, okay, but historically we've known him as a Chaldee priest who was trained at Glastonbury and returned back to Glastonbury. We're going to get into some of that as well. I hope you'll enjoy that. We are much thankful to Almighty God for his example for us to emulate. I hope that you're enjoying the festivities, but okay, you should know that he wasn't Irish leprechaun or some kind of thing like people are showing these days. People are focused on these little green guys and, pilgrim buckle shoes and these things. That's not what God, that's not what he was about. So you might say, what do you mean a Chaldee at Glastonbury? Okay, well, I have copies of at least 7 major ancient martyrologies and fest calendars, as well as ancient chronicles that list him being at Glastonbury and being trained there and returning back there during his last years to become the chief abbot of Glastonbury. For example, the ancient ecclesiastical materials of Colgan, Cashel, Cormac, Camden, and biographers of St. Indrect, St. Bridget, St. Dunstan, and others of repute. The Monasticon lists the abbots of Glastonbury, starting with St. Patrick. The seal of the Glastonbury Abbey, used since the 1300s, includes St. Patrick, Dunstan, and Benegus. St. Joseph of Arimathea is often called the first Culdee, but really, he was standing on the works of those who came before him directly from Jerusalem, sent by the apostles. Namely, the celebrated Aristobulus, the first bishop of Britain, who was assistant of St. Andrew. Okay, this is big. A lot of people are, the Orthodox around the world celebrate Aristobulus, who was the assistant of St. Andrew, okay, of whom our church and numerous Celtic churches are named after. They have, and we have the claim of St. Andrew with the first authority as first chosen within the church, because he said that his church, which would be called the great rock of faith in the Christ, Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, Emmanuel, that he would build his church on the faith. Now, some have said because he was talking to Peter that he was talking about Peter being the rock of the church. Actually not. The faith is the rock of the church. And so we, as many Orthodox, celebrate St. Andrew at the top of our list. Well, guess what? So we know that, as I covered there, and I can show you a few more proofs, that, and you could look them up in our articles. We have numerous articles on St. Patrick, that he was trained, okay? He got his training at Glastonbury, okay? It was called Patrick Senior, okay? And there he got all of his skills, okay? He went on to totally convert the Irish people, okay? And bring them in, okay? And he cast the snakes out of Ireland, and he did a great work, okay? Now, St. Joseph of Arimathea is called the first Culdee, right? Okay, but he was the second bishop of Britain itself. Okay, but Aristobulus was called the first bishop of Britain, and so there you have this succession there on after, where finally St. Patrick is trained at Glastonbury. Now they all kept what's called the Ephesian or Gallican Rite Orthodox liturgy, okay, and all the practices with the marks of the Ephesian Orthodox Rite. So that's the Celtic Rite, okay, that's, kept in, you could see in the English Book of Common Prayer, the English liturgy, which comes from the Sarum Missal, as well as you can look in the Gallican Rite texts, which continue on down a different vein of liturgy that also, for the longest time, kept, instead of the Easter day from Rome celebrating, but the Hebrew calendar that celebrates on the Passover day from the Bible. So there's that. There's the dietary laws. And you have, and we list this out in our articles as well, that St. Patrick is well known for teaching the Hebrew calendar, the dietary laws, and the Saturday Sabbath. Okay, as the Celtic Orthodox kept a distance from Rome and even a distance from Constantinople, and a communion with Jerusalem ongoing. We know St. David was consecrated as Archbishop, St. David of Wales, when he traveled back to Jerusalem. Especially, we see these, liturgical evidences. However, one is well known. It's called in Irish history and throughout the Celtic lands, you have the Hebrew Celtic law called the Liber ex lege Moesi. So it's part of the Moses law. It's codified for the Celts, and it was distributed by St. Patrick and his all of his successors within the Celtic Church, whether they were in Ireland, main, at Armagh is where he's the main primate, the center, archdiocese of Ireland, and he has his successors there, as well as wherever, that came out, the Celtic lands and throughout England, or Britain, we should say at that time, Scotland, Wales, and so forth. And a summary of the contents included not only the seventh-day Sabbath, slavery and the relationship of master to servants, various capital offenses, compensation in money of kind for different crimes, animals, offenses against person and property. So if like an animal attacks someone, animals used as food, clean and unclean, and slaughtering, sex and marriage, feminine hygiene is listed in there, tithes, first fruits, vows, and offerings of all kinds, justice, bribery, witness traducation, and usury. Wow, even usury. Biblical to not have this kind of financial fraud, crime, like they have the central bank credit fraud right now ruling. Cities of refuge, asylum and hospitality, wizards and necromancy and human sacrifices. The penalties with that. Inheritance and sabbatical jubilees, years, debts, how to deal with the debts. Sites of a true prophet, and cursing and blessing. That summarizes a lot of these are the main beliefs by the Celtic Christians. So as today we're getting into the main topic is protecting the children. And most are shocked that we're going to mention it. Thanks for the comment in the chat room. I can't really see all where they're coming from. You can put your name at the bottom of each. We have a centralized platform. I think we have a half a dozen simultaneous live streams going across Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and others. And we're working on having the chat where I can see it all in one place. But at this stage, I don't see all in one place. So I do appreciate the comment in the comments out there. We'll definitely read them off if it is highly relevant during the message. So it's quite important to cover this very disturbing. Some are so disturbed they go numb. So we gotta. That's why we have the praise music going on. That's why we have the worship songs with, celebrating that for this purpose, Christ was manifest to destroy the works of the devil, not to let the devil reign supreme. It says we're to occupy till he comes, and he's given us all this victory. So, part of this great victory we have is in the law that's been provided and handed down from our forefathers. We have more than 100 different laws throughout the Western Christian nation, the nations of the world. The common law nations. We have so many laws that safeguard against any political whim. If you have injury to property, if you have injury to liberty, life, nature itself, so many laws against injury, that protect the people, and laws against child abuse, very specific cases, where any psychologists are saying nowadays, they don't even know what's going to happen. There is no data on what's going to happen if you transition a baby, if you transition they've never done it before, except for maybe in ancient Rome, or an ancient Persia. Oh, by the way, that continues down today with the boys, the sex boys, as you can see in Afghanistan. They have what's called the dancer boys. Well, that's what this is about today. We're covering the child drag queens. This is sex trafficking. Is an old tactic to trick the kids. So you think during Roman times and even the Afghani boys, they're doing the dances for everyone. It's continued on as a tradition. You think they do that by telling the kids, we're going to go force castrate you, by the way? No, they trick them. They tell them stuff. They say, we're going to slip dollar bills in your underwear. And they have the kids doing this all over the United States. They get this video of it. Okay. They're putting, they're having the kids dance, doing sex dances, stripper dances, okay, all over the land, okay, teaching them how to do drag queen dances. And they go down and they say, you can be a drag queen too, okay, and they go down in lingerie for women, okay, they go down in sex dances, okay, and show this to the children. And they say, you can get your body part cut off too. You can do whatever you want. It's such a wonderful thing. And that there are people are lining up and bringing their children because you know why? The trillions of dollars in bank bailout money paid for that. It's going to prop up the financial system via the medical industry. And for every single child that they need to convert or transition, it makes them like at least $250,000 in just the basic therapy, okay, to maintain this new entity they created. So they're forever going to be going to therapists. They're forever going to be continuing to get bodily changes to, surgeries to correct things in their body. So they love it. This is what they call saving the economy. Okay, the medical system control. So all this medical system situation is what all they did. Okay, so the irreparable injuries occur. These are facts. Okay, if you want to say it's just hormone blockers or just changing their gender, or changing to a new gender which never existed in the dictionary prior to 2022. I guess this year they're going to make a new dictionary. Even a Supreme Court justice, a radical liberal one, didn't want to say that she's going to go against the dictionary. Okay, when she was interviewed, she challenged the dictionaries as have been written for thousands of years and have written and published in 2022. She challenged it when she was interviewed. Can you give us a definition of a woman? Okay. And that's how strongly they think that they can beat us, is get all our wealth taken based on new genders, new definitions that trample the rights of the rest. Now, that's illegal. This is a trap they're falling into themselves, but they think they'll beat us all. Okay. But in every case, literally the damages that happen, the injuries that happen. You know that the countries that legalize euthanasia as a medical treatment in many jurisdictions, they also legalize the transitioning the children. And in many of these states and many countries, they also will euthanize anyone if they need a 1 month, occupying a bed to recover. They'll often give them a lethal dose of a morphine and another drug with it that kills the person. But we know that even if it is FDA approved, I just want to remind you that the FDA approved treatments that have backfired, and providers have been sued for billions of dollars and lost hundreds of billions in total of dollars in injuries and damages on FDA products, okay? FDA approved. Then the lawsuits began so many times. They'd lose everything. A lot of them get bailed out, though, and get protected. Like Pfizer has been sued for tens, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars, okay? And we know that suicides are greatly increased. This is proven. In some legal circles, it's being analyzed as what's called a coerced legal, or legally called a medical experiment under the Nuremberg Code and other laws regarding war crimes, crimes against humanity. Okay, it is a state medical experiment. Okay, because they don't know what it will do. They do mention it's robust in carrying it out and want to do it earlier and quicker, although all the data shows that the younger they are when they get the transition, the more likely they are to not want it, because 85% of them, as soon as they hit puberty, roll back. There's a Belgian doctor who came out with that the statistics are that 85% of the youth that come to them want to pull out. They don't want to get transitioned, especially once their normal puberty starts working. But what's happening is there's a number of different hormone you know, hormone blocking ingredients. Okay, it's proven there are hormone blockers in some of the synthetic laundry detergents, as well as fully proven in soy and other products, partially hydrogenated oils that also block the hormones that deal with puberty and fertility. Men who should have plenty of testosterone and be fertile in that area, they're not. The fertility's gone way down, and what they're consuming more and more and more of is the soy. And soy is a major estrogen activator. It even activates in your system more estrogen than the most strongest transitioning drugs in the milligrams they give of estrogen for a man who wants to transition into a woman. Supposedly that can be done. But now what they're saying is that anybody can just, instead of go through like a long drawn out process of counseling before they get it done, that's been banned, okay, in America. But in other countries, they have, okay, they say, look, we have only this really small amount who've actually gone through with it. And then guess what? A percent of those said they don't want it. Now, they don't have enough data to cover the youngest ones, but none of the countries have data to cover the youngest ones. But the problem in America, even Biden and his current health secretary says politically, okay, this is against the Constitution. I'll show you why. But it's clear, okay? So they're basically saying the younger you do it, the better. And Biden wants to push to get the transition done earlier in life. I guess invest 30 grand for your kid. Emergency surgery to save him from suicide, they say. But that was a total debunked, cherry-picked, false report, okay, which was shown actually suicides go up after they get transitioned, not before, okay. And so this is very big, and it somehow governments ran with it all within days of this one report. Billions of dollars, I guess. This is a program that alerted through the most major channels that hit every single news network around the world as fact, and every single World Health Organization, all these different communists owned by America's historic enemies. And today they say they continue to be America's worst enemies, those countries who control it and control many of the businesses that are weakening the fertility rate of our posterity communities and all that. So the protection of our life and our liberty, which is God's law, which is only, the liberty has to do with what comes from nature and the creator, okay? That inalienable rights of the creator, that's liberty. And what didn't come from the creator, which is not in the Bible, are not inalienable rights, period. This is even in the latest Roe versus Wade overturn, which now can be argued in any court, in any lawsuit in the whole United States, and you'll win because you have such a fresh precedent of legal in the Supreme Court that the Glucksberg test is now the new precedent that anything claiming to be a right, which is not rooted in the traditions and in the history, and it's deeply rooted in the history and traditions of our people, if it's not in there, it's not a guaranteed right in our land. And you can sue if they trample your guaranteed right, which are inalienable rights from the creator. You can sue in any court, as well as if they're attacking you based on a fake right, which is, they don't even have data to know if it's affecting the children, how bad it will affect them. All they know is it's good for business. All they know is there will be tens of thousands of dollars in clinical psychology needed, okay? So they're not going to turn away this money. This is like throwing these psychologists a life raft. You think they're not going to go for that? You think, yeah, they may comment as they go counsel these people. They may comment on the side to say, well, we don't know still. And that's what happens. They all let it slip out. I'll say, well, we don't have the data to know what kind of effects this will have, this kind of push for the children to get quickly transitioned. Okay. But the good news that we have today, much good news to share about how we can protect the children. And guess what? There's a lot to show. Okay. And there are so many laws. There are literally hundreds of laws, like I was saying. And we're going to get into a few of those today on this coerced state medical experiment, which is listed under the Nuremberg Code of War Crimes. That's why we have a constitution. It protects against if you get some sort of political, just radical. So this is all well known. Right now, in one state, I know in Illinois, all the sheriffs, 100 counties, I think there's about 130 counties, but 100 of them have all come out in Illinois and said they're not going to enforce. All the sheriffs have made declarations that they're not going to enforce the new law to confiscate guns and force people to register guns and prosecute people on any kind of. It's a whole long list of guns now that the legislature banned. Okay, and we're going to get into that too. Why they understand that they should do that. And this is news as of just a couple of weeks ago. You can go on Epoch Times to look that up. Okay. Although most say there's not enough data, as it's never been done before, we found a large number of the children wish to detransition, only to find it's truly medically not possible to recover from the damages inflicted. So I'm going to link a study which it shows that there's a 20 times higher rate of suicide for the transition versus the non-transition. The speeding along of transitioning has had worse effects. The damages in cases, long drawn out effects and long drawn out continued injuries on the children. And, you know, these are being sued all over the land. Okay. The medical, the hospitals, all the counselors involved, they're being sued all over the United States. Okay. And, you know, if they would have just waited a few months, they would have naturally grown out of it. The children are being forced. This is forced castration. Okay. Well, some of this looks bleak. Okay. It's not. These trillions funded in the medical industry to push the narratives that profit this system from failing. The new Green Deal items such as depopulation, which is a major part, the transfer of wealth to poorer enemy countries like China is highlighted as part of this process that includes depopulation. This is all listed now out in the open. You can read the texts of the legislation that's being passed. Okay, it is political, and it is against nature. It is against the Creator. Okay. You look into any major city and you see whites are outnumbered 10 to 1. Okay. Anything else is a lie. Don't anyone believe that. Some argue there's 25% white, but they forget. You know, although the statistics will say 25% white in Los Angeles or California, Southern California, within that figure it still includes any half-blood person and a whole slew of indigenous, native, and Hispanic people, or any who may just identify as white. They're all included in the white ethnicity classification. So 10 to 1, let's say that the children's going to school is 30 to 1. And that's because, you know, the elderly make up the bigger portion of those numbers of 25%. Okay. The children are outnumbered 30 to 1. Okay. And you ask any of them, they see it every day. They're being attacked, brutalized for the color of their skin, and you got the government egging them on. Political, again, not constitutional government, just politics, which it's not so nice. So that's why it's good we have the Constitution, and those who are political, those who are not just political, but those who are elected at the county level. The result of influence from enemy communist nations to weaken their enemy. Okay, this is a long. It's a plan they put in the 1920s. 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. They've escalated it from taking over the education to taking over every single institution they can, as we're a free and open society. So the enemy nations took over and weakened and have destroyed what and put in new, fake so-called rights, which are not rights according to the law, but are, the antithesis of a right. They actually overtread other people's rights, which are deeply rooted in the history and traditions of the people. Regardless, there will be a turnaround. The topic today is on protecting the children from castration. Okay, if you call it just hormone blockers or making a new gender, that will cast $500,000 in therapies of profit. Okay, and cost the taxpayer that money, making that for the distribution of wealth, again, their ultimate cop-out and the expense of everyone who gets sued, who gets tread under for using a dictionary, an archaic dictionary printed in the year 2022, which has a basis of reality of gender being related to biology. However, we do have quite a good thing. Okay, the lawsuits will win on our behalf. Whatever is unnatural or unlawful or artificial attacks on our rights, okay, we can prevail in the court. We have the whole law on our side. If a crime has been committed against us, just simply do what's required by law, and we'll get into a few of those. It's good you need to know about your local law. Okay, what state law would ban what practices, and when it's committed, to know what to do. In some cases, if you've seen a felony committed, you're to call law enforcement right away. If you don't, you could be considered at some level committing a misdemeanor yourself. Okay, there are a long list of things that you can be charged with when you don't report a felony. Now, we're not getting into that today, but when two people are conspiring together to commit any crime, any misdemeanor, that is a felony in most states. So you got to look up your local laws to know the law. As a good citizen, as a good Christian citizen, you should know your local laws. Yeah, if you don't, you're not. You're just part of the problem. Now, what happens is that they pass the buck. The court passes the buck. The law officers pass the buck to you. You're the one to blame. Okay, because if you didn't do a complaint, if you didn't speak up, now they could say, well, that's all they can act on. Otherwise, they could be acting partial. And the most important thing is they got to be impartial. So that means you have to show which law and which injury has occurred, which crime has occurred, what damages, and so forth, how it was carried out against you or against someone in the community. So if you can't show all that, you don't have a complaint. So without a complaint, they can't do anything. So it's not like just they're supposed to be monitoring every single library to look for a sex show that's going to go on strippers to go in there half naked and start showing the kids how they can dance too, and all of this, and coerce them into all these crimes. Now we're going to get into several of those crimes. They have to do with the very bad castration. It is castration. Don't anyone tell me it's anything else. Come on. So, okay. But there are plenty of other means to protect the children from this coercion. There is a lot of this direct inflicting of sexual and other permanent injuries. So there are a number of laws that protect it. Under the recent Supreme Court precedent, you got now a lot on your side in disposal. Okay. The Glucksberg test. So, as well known, the foreign compromise Biden-Obama political elite who have been working with NAMBLA, which is a federally convicted group of people. I mean, they've been totally convicted of child sex trafficking felonies. Okay, these felonies of taking in kids from Mexico and other countries, as well as setting up sex rings for them. Okay, and that's what a vast number of these children end up getting and doing, is they're getting brought into not only to learn how to dance and get dollar bills put in their belt or put in their underwear there on site while the cameras are rolling, but they're also typically going into a life of sexual abuse. It's not just a few bars where they're going to be watched that no one grabs them inappropriately, but it goes on wider than that. That typically is a dangerous environment, and the statistics are very, they're published that they're more prone to further abuse. So we're going to get into some of the abuse laws on it as well, and it's going to really come out quite big that these things are to guard against. Okay, so we know that civil laws fall under direct enforcement by our sheriff or whoever is your local law enforcement. We know that here's a few of the laws. Whoever perpetrates acts of physical or emotional abuse to a child have committed felonies published up to 30 years in prison. This includes persuading children to engage in any sexual conduct. That includes coercing or persuading children to engage in sexual medical experiments, with the increase of the suicide rates. There's a heritage.org study that you can look up or linking in that about the 20 times more likely to commit suicide after transitioning. And there have been heavy penalties in just about any state for any acts that would induce a child into self-harm. That in light with the bulk of any state laws surrounding child abuse would activate any officer of law, and especially county elected sheriffs, who firstly have an oath to the Constitution and are legally the true representatives of the people, keepers of the peace of the county. Under their specific oaths, which most of them understand, have continued on exercising their duties to this day. So when any corrupt political agenda goes in, even if it passes into state law, the sheriffs still, and they understand and they follow it, as other law enforcement should, about the overriding principle of the Constitution, which will at the end of the day win in any court. So they conduct themselves accordingly. They can continue to prosecute, arrest, at least for some time, those who are doing these politically, let's say, driven crimes, protected by political prosecutors who won't enforce the violators of said code. So even if the prosecutor won't come involved, that they can at least stop some instances of the crime by detaining them while the investigation goes on. So if they lack support, it's possible that local signature drives can be done to petition the county commissioners, invoking them to press their First Amendment right of freedom to petition the state legislators and up the scale. Okay, so there are legal remedies like gathering the signatures. If you're really in an area that just has some foreign political control against the Constitution, these are some of the remedies. So list out what crimes are being committed in your area and get that put on as the power of the people is represented in independent states. That's the text of the Constitution. And any court in the land stands by the clear definition of the rule of law. Article 6, Section 1, prior engagements include the Federalist Papers. One of those is, yeah, on the uscourts.gov. It's called the rule of law. And it states that the power of the people are superior to that of the legislature and judiciary. Both the legislature and the judiciary are lower. The people being supreme. Okay, so it's any good citizen should petition and realize that they are the lawmen, not the latter. It was the people who set up each police department pursuant to these laws. The laws of posse comitatus is at the center. One of these in the law dictionaries says that everyone in the county, so one of these laws regarding posse comitatus and regarding the sheriff, says that everyone in the county must be ready to be apparelled upon the command of the sheriff to assist him in arresting those committing felonies or capturing those who resisted him with violence. If so, he can call you up, and if you don't respond to the sheriff, you can be subject to a penalty. If the case is this is basic law dictionary. If the case is regarding an outlaw under citizen grand jury, certain other rights of the county may be invoked without being inferior to the existing legislature or judiciary. The law dictionaries, I will quote, tell us the sheriff is the chief executive officer of the county, carrying the force of the county, as elected by the county and sworn to the Constitution. This is validated as the highest official of the law, protector of the county against foreign aggression. There's a long list of laws that can be carried out to maintain the peace, to disrupt the plotting and conspiring of other adults or minors from abusing and maiming permanently other children. The sheriff is to ensure punitively that such crimes are not regularly performed as is presently being plotted and openly declared to be the feasts of these activists. These children are their prey. They go to redefine reality for them that they can, when they can become child drag queens and show them how great it is for their own sexual entertainment. Each of these being paid to do stripper and other sex dances while adults watch and throw them dollar bills, fondle and place them in their underwear as part of a paid sexual activity in violation of a great number of laws. The half-nude shows in sexual lingerie and G-strings, etc., for the children to have a reverse aspect, so it's in the other way around when they do it that way. A similar penalty can occur for the related crimes. Sheriff's posse, okay, are part of the sheriff's force, which are to do and help carry out what is corrective. We're not saying to take the law into your own hands. You can collaborate with your sheriff, and you can speak for inquire to him and try to find what can be done according to the law. Honestly and very respectfully discussing it with him. Okay. But you have the duty. It's like we just read. The power of the people is superior to the judiciary and the legislature, and that they pass the buck to you anyway. They're not going to move, and they can't move. They're supposed to be impartial unless a crime occurs, if someone's been injured. So we can see now the injuries coming out. Although the psychologists say there's no data to know if it will work or not to give the children the castration so young. That's what it is. Don't anyone tell me it's hormone blockers. We can see all the way it's castration. Okay. But if you found that these injuries occurred in your county to your own people, that affects your posterity. That affects your inheritance, your life, and your liberty. Okay. And you have a duty and a right to act upon it, to alert law enforcement to the specific crimes that have been committed. I mean, if this is going to affect your children adversely, when whole dictionaries are thrown out, anything printed in 2022 that says gender is related to biology is now thrown out. then your inheritance may be impacted. If you can see a line there, you have right for punitive. So they may use force of the county. The sheriff can use it to restore the peaceful environment and the future of the children. Any official written petition with signatures may be delivered to the elected county boards, okay, county supervisors, and so forth, and they can double confirm that a planned neglect continued in upholding the laws of your county, and they could send it right up the chain that, you know, to help it get done at the state level if the county level really is continuing to not perform their duty. The elected sheriff's oath to uphold the state constitution act as a representative of the people who are superior to both the legislative and judicial branches of government, as in uscourts.gov. I linked that in a recent article on the common law. You can get that on orthodoxchurch.nl. That's standrewsocc.org. st-andrewsocc.org. Yes, the power of the people is superior to both, it says. This is what they pass the buck to you, okay? And your chief representative, being the sheriff, he's elected. He's definitely your person who's your representative. You vote him in, and you can vote him out. Okay, so let's get into some of the crimes. Okay, if a perpetrator knew their conduct could injure a child's welfare, it's covered under statutes in almost every state. Okay, just endangering the welfare of a child is a second-degree Class A misdemeanor. If you didn't know, even if you didn't know. Now, if two people are conspiring to do it, it becomes a felony. Or if it's become any kind of established pattern of activity, in which the case is a Class E felony in a number of states, which is punishable of 10 years. Although the rest may require that they had knowingly encouraged the child, but that part of just recklessness wouldn't be sufficient. So that's the biggest one that includes a huge number. So you have that one at the top, endangering welfare of a child, if you write that down. Any enticing or persuading a child to engage in sexual conduct, this could be a sub law that you can use. Enticement to a child penalty ranges from 5 to 30 years in prison. So when they entice them, oh, you could be a drag queen too. Here, let me put dollars in your underwear right there. You could dance like this and do a sexual stripper dance like me. And you see my thong and all these kinds of things and the sexual lingerie. I hate to look, I'm not trying to desensitize you. This is happening. And now you need to write down and be logical and clear. Okay. Don't forget it and write it down. Follow through. God holds you. He says, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. You got to enforce this by going to your county and ask the sheriff, is this specific law enticement or persuading a child to engage in sexual conduct? Okay. Now that's different in different states. Look up your local codes. You better know your code. You're not a good citizen if you don't. God put that responsibility on you, and it came from your ancestors. It came from your forefathers. In the 1960s, every single state had laws against interracial marriage. Every single state, just about every state. And 28 of the states had it a felony until the year 1967, and some until 1968. Alabama continued to have the law in the books on the Constitution itself that in no time in the future they could legalize interracial marriage. That stayed on the books till the year 2000, that at no time in the future anyone in the state could that would be called insurrection, and insurrection is a high crime of treason. Okay, so your people knew, and your ancestors gave you this, and this is part of the basic heritage, that you have a right, that you don't get stolen from. Okay, anything else is theft from you and your posterity. Okay, but nature and what's come from the Creator as rightly, and it says is the Constitution overturn of Roe versus Wade. We saw that it was constitutional, that any right that's not deeply rooted in the history and traditions of our people, it says it's not a right, it's null and void. This is what overturned the Roe versus Wade. And this is the current precedent that we have to press on for. And every single court in the whole United States, this is a fresh precedent. They will acknowledge it in any time you've been a crime's been committed against you. you can use that in a lawsuit. Anybody has a right. They just pay the filing fee, and they can press the damages if there were damages, real damages that occur. Okay. So child victims of sexual abuse have true rights of true protection. So the lies of saying we have a new reality don't change that. Any psychologist anywhere says we don't know. There's not enough data to know what this is going to produce. Okay. So they have that right of protection. Just like you would protect someone from a stalker or from any other abuse, whether they're in their own homes or other environments. There are all sorts of regulations regarding that. Some may be asking about those in the middle of therapies, to create this new gender and what to do with them. Because, for example, they now have an organ that's deformed or come out differently than they expected, and they don't know what they're doing, and they wanted to reverse it 1 month after they started it, and they didn't realize that it was really going to happen. Well, what's happened is God gave a command for all people to crucify their flesh. Jesus said, if you don't take up your cross, crucify your flesh, and follow me, you cannot follow me. Okay, everybody, even the word love is a commandment. You got to obey the orders. You're in the army of the Lord. Okay. Commanded to love. And now you yield to the Creator, and He fills you with the Spirit when you yield, and He helps you to love and love your neighbor and love God. It's a commandment because it's for your own good. A good parent leads the child in their gender of either masculinity or femininity. It's a choice. The child either obeys or disobeys. Anything else, I believe, is endangering a child's welfare, okay? And then the rest of this falls into play. This will play out in 99% of the cases. It was 100% till they started invading living rooms, confusing people, and creating this new gender dysphoria, 14,000% increase in the last 5 to 10 years via the television and other aspects to create an artificial reality. This is all part of the trillions spent on the bank bailouts under Obama to get the medical industry to have a revival and turn around and save the economy. And we redistribute the wealth to an elite number of people who own the various businesses that profit. So other codes, for example, in most states have, for example, abuse or neglect of a child. As used in this section, the following terms shall mean abuse: the infliction of physical, sexual, or mental injury against a child by any person 18 years or older. All such related willful or knowingly inflicting said injury to a child. Anybody who's over the age of 18 knows, because it's never happened before, and you have plenty of people you see who are messed up, so you know it's going to injure them. You know and you not only know it's going to injure them, you know it's going to injure the whole systemic white supremacy. Okay, because yes, it's system. They all took a knee saying they're protesting the systemic nationalist Christian nation, okay? And they call it white nation and Christian, they're interchangeable, okay? And that they're protesting against it. They want to attack it. They want to tear it down by all means, by any means necessary, including to neglect and abuse their own children as little soldiers, to create new entities and mess them up. So yeah, okay, some people are saying, well, what do you do with these children who are maimed for life, or they've created some new organ on their body? They look funny, they look weird. It's not, I mean, they have the chromosomes of the woman stamped into each and every cell of their body. The DNA itself says it's a woman in every single cell. And then all of a sudden they put all these hormones of a man, flood them into the woman. And now all of a sudden you got these new organs who've grown on this person. I know it's horrible, but it's not like Biden says. There is no proof that it helps anyone to go. There's actually debunked that if you go quicker to get these surgeries, so you can, anyone with a IQ, a lot of people have a higher IQ than me, can say, hey, it makes more sense to quickly stop the procedure rather than be going slow about stopping it. Okay. Sure, any hormone, you can offset it with another medicine to help wean them off of the hormone. Okay, sure. Maybe they need to go for walks and exercise. Maybe they need to go running with Sylvester Stallone or something and get the masculinity going. You know what I mean? But abuse and all of these inflictions of these injuries, okay, are felonies, huge felonies with 20 years or more in prison. So you want to take the risk with that or this new artificial experimental reality, which they have no data to know what will happen. We have laws in the books that say, even for a temporary piercing, okay, in their nose, eyebrow, anywhere else besides just a normal earlobe piercing, in most states, it's a misdemeanor. Okay, and if you did it with if two adults conspired to get that piercing done without consent of the parent, so if it's this is a parental consent law. Okay, so this could be added on to the overreaching welfare, endangering the welfare of a child. Okay, one of them. If you need a few items, it could be a part of your argument in any complaint. You can have some sub parts, but have a main one. Always have one main one. If you make it too complex, you could use different items as proof that it occurred. But on the main one, you need one complaint clearly. Okay, you can have also some justification why you believe that it's an injury been committed or damages, and why it should be addressed with, it's important for the court to address. For example, if it is a temporary piercing, you could get a misdemeanor. If two people conspire, it's a felony. Felony gets 5, 10, 20 years in jail. So anytime two people conspire to commit a crime, it is a felony. So when there's a felony, most law enforcement want you to do a citizen's arrest right then and hold them, detain them until they arrive on the scene. Most of them, but call them and check. Okay, don't do it because I said it. Check with your law enforcement. All I'm saying, don't take the law in your own hands. Check with your law enforcement. Ask very diplomatically. Be courteous. Okay. Now, genital mutilation is a Class B felony. Okay. So many laws around the world. Okay. It's a felony to do genital mutilation. Okay. All right. And now it's rarely going to increase the chances of suicide that you don't do anything. Most of the time, if people do nothing, huge percent of the time there's no suicide. That's what the statistics show. Okay, but I'm for helping people. But now what they did is they politically banned helping the people. Okay, this is another systemic crime, which is a crime in itself. Any person who is behind that has politically coming. So this will play out in the courts. That's why sheriffs are typically staying on the side of the Constitution, because they know they'll lose one day when it gets before the courts. The Constitution will win. They'll roll this back just like they rolled back Roe versus Wade, and one day it'll roll back. There won't be any this continuing on to say, oh, you can't help the child. Well, it's called reversion therapy. Okay, so really, there's Canada who's banned it. In most states, it's still legal to do, but there are restrictions around the world. Okay, most of the states of America, it's legal. You can still get the therapy, but the state is not going to recommend it, and the state will even cause, if anyone violates your right on that point, keep a note of that. If you know anybody who is blocking that right for reversion therapy, that means someone isn't sure about the gender. They've been neglected by their parent, and their parents endangered their welfare, or someone on TV gave them advice, which they can now sue them for the advice to change their gender just quickly, like nothing. these are very easy cases to show, if there isn't at least a reversion therapy, and if they're blocking reversion therapy, then that's a crime in itself. Now, if it doesn't affect you, you may not have standing. Certain crimes don't have to be where it's affecting you, but if you're a witness of a felony, it doesn't have to affect you. You alert the law enforcement, let them figure it out. Okay? So, in any case, that is a winning standpoint we have in Christ, which came from our forefathers, which came from Christ, because 99% of the population believed in Jesus Christ. Okay. Article 6, Section 1 talks about any prior adoption of any text in the land is valid today. So that means the Bible, which was the law of the land. That means the original constitutions, which is said for our union definition. Even today, the definition of the union has been carried over and carried over. And it says this: the perpetual confederation has one aim, the advancement of the kingdom of Jesus Christ and maintaining the purity of the gospel. Another one says the liberty and purity of the gospel, as in the churches. Okay. Liberty and purity of the gospel. That's the true liberty. Okay. We get the proof of the true liberty all the time. The true liberty, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, it tells us what that is. The inalienable rights are the true liberty, which come from the Creator, not from the artificial things that are not from nature. Nature's God, nature's law. All the laws have to do with nature and from the Creator. Those are the inalienable rights. Anyone that's not connected to the Creator or even goes against the Creator are a major issue. So, well, we're closing up, and it's been a good one with you. Take care, and may God bless you. Take care until next time.